You know that picture of parenting we often see? The one with the serene smiles and like perfectly behaved kids?
Yeah, the Instagram version.
Exactly. If you're actually living it, you know the reality is often, well, a beautiful, messy, exhausting blend of love and moments where you just crave 5 minutes of silence.
Totally. And that societal pressure to feel blissful all the time.
Oh, it's rough. It can make those tougher moments feel like you're somehow, you know, doing it wrong.
It's so true. And what's interesting is that Raising Good Humans Every Day by Hunter Clarke-Fields, our source for this deep dive, um, it immediately acknowledges that.
Right.
It validates that parenting is genuinely challenging and that maybe many of us are navigating it without the strong community support that used to be more common.
Yeah.
It's kind of a relief to hear someone just say, yeah, this is hard, and that's okay.
Absolutely. And that's precisely why we wanted to unpack this book. It's like not about chasing some impossible ideal of parental perfection, but about offering us as parents and caregivers some really practical tools for navigating the everyday whirlwind.
Practical is key.
Definitely. Clarke-Fields talks about being honest with ourselves, reflecting on those moments that don't go as planned, those parenting glitches.
I like that term, glitches.
Me too.
Yeah,
And actually using them as fuel for our own growth. It's like she's saying, look, we all stumble. What can we learn from the wobble?
exactly. And our mission with this deep dive is to pull out those actionable insights, things you can actually use.
Right.
We want to shift away from the idea that we can or even should control our children, which is a big theme we'll come back to,
Oh, yeah.
and move towards a more mindful and, crucially, a more self-compassionate way of guiding them.
And just so we're all clear, when we say parent, we're using that term broadly, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We mean everyone who's in a caregiving role, grandparents, foster parents, aunts, uncles. I mean, all the incredible people pouring their energy and love into raising the next generation.
Perfect. So let's dive right into chapter 1, which tackles something I think every single parent has like butted their head against: the illusion of control.
The big one.
It's a bit of a shock to the system when you realize that this tiny human you're raising, especially once they hit that stage around, what, 2 years old, they have a mind of their own.
They really do. They aren't, as the book puts it so well, these little robots just waiting for our commands.
Not at all.
And what's really striking here is a very relatable moment the author shares. She talks about a time she yelled at her toddler.
I think we've all been there.
Right. And in that moment, she realized she not only couldn't force her daughter to do what she wanted, but she also felt completely out of control herself.
Uh-huh. That sudden, almost embarrassing awareness of, wait a minute, who's supposed to be the grown-up here?
Exactly. And that leads to a really key takeaway.
Hmm.
The real locus of control lies within us, the parents.
Okay.
We can't dictate every single word or action our kids take, but we absolutely can learn to manage our own responses, our words, our tone, our behaviors.
So it's about turning that focus inward.
Precisely. And this brings up a really important point about, well, whose emotional needs are actually being addressed in those moments?
Interesting.
The book gently points out that often, when we try to control a child's behavior or emotions, we're actually trying to make ourselves feel better.
Oof. Yeah, I can see that.
Think about it.
Yeah.
We're asking these young beings with brains that are still, under construction
Right.
to regulate our fully formed adult feelings. It's a bit upside down, isn't it?
It does sound a little backward when you put it like that. And it ties in nicely with a quote from Hal Runkel that the book includes.
Oh, the Runkle quote, yeah.
If you're not under control, you can't be in charge. To be in charge means controlling yourself so you can influence your kids.
That's it. It's not about dominating them.
No.
It's about leading them from a place of our own inner calm and, well, self-regulation,
Okay.
which leads us naturally to another vital concept from Chapter 1, the idea of the good enough parent.
Good enough. I like the sound of that. It feels achievable.
It does. Now, this isn't about lowering our standards to the point of neglect or anything like
Of
that,
course not.
but rather about embracing the beautiful reality of imperfection. The book introduces us to Donald Winnicott's concept of the good enough mother, which he coined way back in 1953.
Wow, 1953. That's been around a while.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is his observation that children actually benefit when their caregivers don't meet their every single need every single time.
Okay, that might sound a little counterintuitive, right?
Yes.
Especially with all the messages out there about being this hyper-attentive, always-on parent.
It does. But Winnicott's point, as the book clarifies, is that children need these tolerable failures.
Tolerable failures. Okay.
To learn how to navigate a world that isn't always going to give them exactly what they want, exactly when they want it.
Right. So what are some examples of these tolerable failures?
Well, think about those everyday moments. Maybe you don't immediately respond to every single bid for attention, or you make a meal that isn't their absolute favorite, or, you have to make them do something they'd rather not, like tidying up their toys.
Standard Tuesday night stuff.
Pretty much.
Right.
These aren't major traumas, right? But they gently teach children that the world doesn't revolve solely around them, that disappointment is a normal feeling, and, importantly, that they are capable of surviving those little bumps in the road. In essence, by not immediately solving every minor frustration, you're actually gifting your child a chance to develop their own problem-solving skills and resilience.
So you're building those crucial life muscles.
Exactly. Muscles they won't build if we constantly step in and fix everything.
It's about building that inner strength, isn't it? Learning that it's okay to feel a bit bored or annoyed or sad or disappointed.
Yeah.
And that they'll come out the other side. It's a far cry from chasing that unattainable goal of perfect parenting.
Which, as the book wisely points out, just sets everyone up for disappointment and a whole lot of unnecessary pressure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And striving for this mythical perfection can actually get in the way of us being truly present with our children and offering them unconditional love.
Oh, so?
Well, we become so fixated on getting everything right that we miss the messy, beautiful reality of the moment unfolding right in front of us.
Lost in the shoulds.
Totally. The book encourages us to gently question why we're holding ourselves to this impossible standard and to consider what it might feel like to simply give ourselves permission to be human, flaws and all.
Permission to be human. I like that. Okay, let's move on to chapter 3, which really hit home for me. Modeling behavior.
Ah, yes, the little mirrors.
Right, this is where you have that slightly uncomfortable realization that your kids are basically walking, talking mirrors, soaking up everything you do, even when you're convinced they're not even paying attention.
What's fascinating here is the author's very relatable story about her older daughter mimicking her sharp tone of voice with her younger sister.
Ouch.
It's one of those light bulb moments where you think, oh, that's what I sound like when I'm frustrated.
Right.
Children are incredibly attuned to our actions and our unspoken cues, often learning far more from what we do than from what we explicitly tell them.
It's a little humbling, isn't it? Because suddenly you realize the responsibility is really on us to embody the behaviors we hope to see in our children.
Exactly.
Telling them to calm down. When you yourself are visibly agitated, doesn't exactly send a coherent message.
Not really, no. The book emphasizes that when emotions run high in a family, it's the adult's job, the one with the more developed brain, right?
Right.
To consciously regulate their own nervous system. We have to show them what calming down looks like in practice.
We can't expect them to master something we haven't mastered ourselves.
Precisely. We simply can't.
And this isn't just about our outward actions, is it? It extends to our inner dialogue, too.
That's a great point. The book touches on the detrimental impact of harsh self-criticism.
Oh, yeah, the inner critic.
Explaining how it triggers that same fight, flight, freeze response we talked about earlier, which actually hinders personal growth.
I know I've definitely been guilty of that internal beatdown after a particularly challenging parenting moment. We all have, probably.
It's a really common trap, and physiologically, that harsh inner critic creates stress in both our minds and our bodies. Ironically, it doesn't actually motivate us to improve. More often than not, it leaves us feeling stuck and less willing to take risks or try new approaches for fear of more self-judgment.
So what's the antidote? How do we counter that?
Self-compassion.
Okay.
Treating ourselves with the same gentle kindness and understanding we would offer a dear friend who is struggling.
That makes sense.
The book breaks it down into 3 key components. Mindfulness, which is being aware of our thoughts and feelings in the present moment without judgment.
Right, the awareness piece.
Self-kindness, actively responding to our own suffering with warmth and care.
Being nice to yourself, basically.
Basically. And common humanity, remembering that making mistakes is a universal human experience, that we're not alone in this messy journey.
We're all in the same boat.
Exactly. And the book introduces Kristen Neff's self-compassion break as a practical way to start cultivating this.
How does that work?
It involves consciously recognizing a moment of difficulty, reminding ourselves that struggle is a shared human experience, that common humanity piece, and then intentionally offering ourselves some kindness, maybe even a gentle touch or just a comforting thought. It's a really powerful tool for shifting that critical inner narrative.
That sounds doable, even in the moment. Okay, let's move on to chapter 5, which delves into understanding reactivity and the stress response.
Ah, the neuroscience bit.
Yeah, this section really helped me make sense of those times when I feel like I'm just operating on pure instinct and, let's be honest, not always the best instincts.
Right. Well, what's fascinating here is the explanation of our body's natural stress response, that fight, flight, or freeze mechanism,
Mm.
and how easily it can be triggered by our children's challenging behaviors,
Uh-huh.
even though there isn't an actual saber-toothed tiger in the room.
Right, thankfully.
Our bodies can react as if there is, based on
Mhm.
perceived threats like a child's defiance or, just their distress.
And that stress response, as the book explains, actually takes the prefrontal cortex, that part of our brain right behind our forehead, that helps us think clearly and control our impulses.
The thinking brain.
Right, it takes it offline.
Yeah.
So when we're in that heightened state, it becomes much harder to choose a calm and thoughtful reaction instead of, say, raising our voice or shutting down.
Exactly. We need that PFC online to engage in thoughtful, intentional parenting and to avoid those reactive outbursts.
Maybe so.
And the book highlights the crucial role of co-regulation.
Co-regulation. Okay, what's that exactly?
It's essentially how our nervous systems interact.
Uh,
Our children's developing nervous systems are deeply influenced by our own emotional state.
uh,
So if we're feeling escalated, it makes it much more difficult for them to find their own calm. It's like an emotional contagion.
it's like an emotional feedback loop, isn't it?
Totally. If we're calm, it helps them calm down, and vice versa. If we're stressed, they often pick up on that and get stressed too.
And it really reframes those bad behaviors we sometimes see in our kids, doesn't it?
It does. The book suggests that often those behaviors can be driven by their own fight, flight, or freeze response when they feel threatened or overwhelmed.
Even if we don't mean to be threatening.
Exactly. Even if we, as bigger and louder adults, don't consciously intend to be threatening, our size or tone can still trigger that response in them.
Which brings us to practical strategies for teaching emotional regulation. What does the book suggest?
Well, it emphasizes the power of labeling feelings, the idea of name it to tame it, both for ourselves and for our children.
Name it to tame it. I like that.
Acknowledging those big, difficult emotions out loud helps us and them begin to process them. And of course, as we discussed earlier, modeling our own calm is absolutely key.
Right. Showing, not just telling.
Yeah. Saying something like, wow, I'm feeling really frustrated right now, and I'm going to take a few deep breaths, shows them a tangible way to manage those big feelings in the moment.
Okay, good tip. Now, chapter 8 dives into something called the negativity bias. This was a real aha moment for me.
Oh yeah, the brain's default setting.
Exactly. I've often wondered why my mind seems to be so much better at latching onto the negative things that happen during the day.
Well, what's fascinating here is the evolutionary explanation behind it. Think back to our ancestors,
Okay.
those who were particularly attuned to potential dangers. The rustle in the bushes, the weird-looking berry.
Oh, right. The threats.
They were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. So as a result, our brains have inherited this natural tendency to prioritize negative information as a survival mechanism.
So it's like a built-in alarm system?
Kind of.
Hmm?
The book uses Rick Hanson's wonderful analogy. The mind is like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones.
Wow. That image really sticks with you, doesn't it? Velcro for bad, Teflon for good.
It does. We're almost hardwired to pay closer attention to difficulties and bad news. But as the book points out, this default setting doesn't exactly set us up for feeling relaxed, content, and deeply connected with our children.
No, it doesn't.
We might find ourselves dwelling on those few moments of uncooperative behavior and completely overlooking all the times they're being kind or helpful or just, joyful.
And the book also touches on the intergenerational transmission of trauma and stress.
Yeah, briefly. It suggests that past hardships can even have subtle influences, maybe even genetic ones, that contribute to this inherent negativity bias. So it's not just about our immediate experiences. Sometimes these patterns run deeper.
But the encouraging news, as the book emphasizes, is that this isn't a fixed state, right?
Absolutely not. Our brains are incredibly adaptable, that concept called neuroplasticity.
You're right.
And we can consciously work to counteract this negativity bias and train our brains to notice and appreciate the positive moments more readily.
We can actually rewire things a bit.
We can, which segues beautifully into the power of mindfulness explored in chapters 9 and 11.
Okay, mindfulness.
Mindfulness, as the book defines it so simply, is just bringing our full attention to the present moment with an attitude of kindness and curiosity.
So paying attention on purpose without judgment.
Basically, it's a way of being, and meditation is one of the primary tools we use to cultivate this state.
Now, I know meditation can sound a little intimidating for some people, right?
Yeah.
You might picture someone sitting cross-legged for hours with a perfectly empty mind.
Yeah, that's a common misconception. But the book really demystifies it. It explains meditation as this incredibly simple practice of gently guiding your attention back to a neutral anchor, like the sensation of your breath, whenever your mind wanders off, which it inevitably will. Constantly.
So the wandering isn't failure.
Not at all. That moment of noticing the distraction, the book
Yeah.
points out, isn't a failure. It's actually the golden moment in meditation.
Golden moment. Okay.
Yeah. It's like a little workout for your attention muscle.
Mhm.
Every time you notice you're lost in thought and gently bring your focus back, you're strengthening your ability to focus and cultivate a sense of calm.
So it's the noticing and returning that's the practice.
Exactly. The goal isn't to achieve a blank mind, which is pretty much impossible anyway, but rather to practice that gentle return to the present moment again and again without beating yourself up about it.
Okay. The book introduces sitting meditation as a more formal practice.
It does. And it breaks down the basic steps. Finding a comfortable and stable posture doesn't have to be cross-legged on the floor.
Good to know.
Choosing an anchor for your attention, like your breath or the sensations in your body, and then gently redirecting your focus whenever your mind starts chatting away about your to-do list or what's for dinner.
And guided meditations can help too, right?
Definitely. The book suggests starting with guided meditations, which can be a really helpful way to get your feet wet, especially if you're new to it. And it mentions the importance of ending with kindness towards yourself.
And what about people who just can't sit still?
Well, Chapter 11 explores walking meditation as a completely valid and effective alternative.
Walking meditation, how does that work?
It's all about slowing down your pace, really feeling the sensation of each step as your foot touches the ground, maybe coordinating that with your breath.
So you're bringing that same mindful attention, but while moving.
Exactly. It's a fantastic way to channel any restless energy into a mindful practice and still reap all the wonderful benefits of present moment awareness.
Interesting. Okay, chapter 12 then delves into the concept of being present.
Yes, which sounds simple, but
It's harder than it sounds. It really highlights the often vast difference between just being physically in the same room as your child and truly being awake and engaged with them in that moment.
the book paints this lovely picture, or maybe not so lovely, of walking to the park with your child, but being so lost in your own thoughts. Maybe running through your work to-do list or worrying about something else entirely. That you completely miss the feel of the breeze, the sight of the flowers, or just the simple joy of holding your child's hand.
Yeah. You're there physically, but mentally you're a million miles away.
Right. Often unintentionally scanning for potential problems or replaying past events, thanks to that negativity bias we talked about.
And that mental distraction, as the book explains, prevents us from truly witnessing our child's experiences as they unfold. And from connecting with them in the present moment, which is, of course, the only place where that genuine connection can actually happen.
So true. And to actively counteract this tendency to be mentally elsewhere, the book introduces the powerful concept of special time.
Special time. Oh,
This is a dedicated period, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, where you give your child your 100% undivided attention.
No phones, no multitasking.
None. You follow their lead, you engage in whatever they want to do, and you completely set aside your own agendas and distractions.
That sounds really nice, actually.
It really is. This mindful special time can be a real win-win. It not only strengthens the bond between parent and child, but can also foster a sense of calm and cooperation in the long run. Kids often act out to get attention, right? This gives them positive attention proactively.
Makes sense. Okay, moving to chapter 15, which tackles the important topic of processing emotions.
Yes, dealing with the tough stuff.
And it really acknowledges that many of us, grew up in families or environments where big, difficult feelings weren't really talked about.
Or were even actively suppressed or ignored. Stop crying, don't be angry.
Exactly. Big boys don't cry, all that stuff.
What's insightful here is the book's use of the emotional hamburger metaphor.
Emotional hamburger. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Think of your emotions as ingredients. If they're not properly processed and digested, they can lead to indigestion, in this case, emotional outbursts or other difficulties down the line. Stuck feelings.
Ah, okay. So we need to digest our feelings.
Pretty much. Instead of trying to block out or numb our difficult emotions, the book emphasizes the importance of learning to actually feel the physical sensations of those emotions in our bodies.
Feel them physically.
Yeah, without getting completely overwhelmed by them, just noticing where they show up.
And how do we do that without getting overwhelmed?
Well, the book brings back Daniel Siegel's helpful phrase, name it to tame it.
Right, we talked about that for kids. Works for adults, too.
Absolutely. Simply identifying and naming a strong emotion, okay, this is anger, or I'm feeling really anxious right now, can create a little bit of distance and provide some immediate relief.
Okay.
And then it introduces Tara Brach's incredibly useful RAIN method for going deeper.
RAIN, what does that stand for?
R is for investigation. Recognize the feeling as it arises. A is for allow or accept its presence without resistance, just letting it be there.
Okay, recognize, allow.
I is for investigate. Where in your body are you feeling it? What thoughts are attached to it? Getting curious about it.
Investigate, and N.
N is for nurture. Respond to yourself with kindness and compassion, just like you would for a friend.
Recognize, allow, investigate, nurture. RAIN. That's a great acronym.
A really valuable tool, as the book highlights, for learning to process our own sometimes overwhelming emotions in a healthy way, rather than unintentionally taking them out on our children.
Right.
It's about learning to say yes to the fact that these feelings are here for a reason. And by consciously acknowledging and feeling them, we can eventually move through them rather than getting stuck or letting them leak out sideways.
Okay, that's powerful. Now, Chapter 16 offers a really helpful shift in perspective by reframing mistakes as opportunities.
Yes, permission to mess up.
Something I think many of us striving for that elusive good parent badge really need to hear.
The book acknowledges upfront that messing up in parenting is not just likely. It's absolutely inevitable. We are human, after all.
It's going to happen.
It is. And it beautifully introduces Thich Nhat Hanh's metaphor of no mud, no lotus.
No mud, no lotus. Explain that.
Just as the beautiful lotus flower needs the muddy, murky soil to grow strong and blossom, our challenges and our mistakes as parents are actually necessary for our own growth in wisdom and compassion.
So the hard stuff, the mud, is actually required for growth.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that those moments we tend to view as failures, the arguments, the missteps, the times we don't handle things perfectly, can actually be incredibly valuable learning experiences. Experiences that ultimately help us become kinder, more skillful, and more understanding parents. Think about it. If we never experienced our own imperfections, how could we possibly extend compassion to our children when they inevitably stumble?
That's a really good point. If we expect perfection from ourselves, we'll probably expect it from them, too.
Precisely. Trying to avoid our own feelings can actually lead to more judgment of ourselves and others, and ultimately hinder our ability to truly connect with our children on a human level.
So embrace the mud.
Embrace the mud. The book gently encourages us to embrace our imperfections and to see those difficult moments as the mud that helps us grow into more resilient and compassionate caregivers.
I like that framing. Okay, Chapter 19 focuses on achieving parental equilibrium. Sounds nice.
Doesn't it? It acknowledges the constant demands and stresses of modern life and the vital need for us to find and utilize tools that help us regain our sense of balance, our center.
And what tools does it suggest?
Well, it introduces the beautiful Zen teaching of beginner's mind.
Beginner's mind.
Yeah. Approaching each and every moment with a sense of openness and fresh curiosity as if you were experiencing it for the very first time.
How does that apply to parenting?
Well, this practice helps us to sidestep confirmation bias. Where we tend to only see what we already believe about our children, like, oh, he's always difficult at bedtime.
Right. We look for evidence that confirms our beliefs.
Exactly. Beginner's mind allows us to perceive them with new eyes, moment by moment.
And it suggests a specific practice around this.
It does. The practice of intentionally seeing your child with fresh eyes, almost like you're meeting them for the very first time.
Okay.
Noticing the small details, the way their hair falls, the sound of their laughter, the things you might normally overlook in the hustle and bustle. It's about letting go of any preconceived notions and just being more fully present in that immediate connection.
That sounds lovely, actually. A way to reset.
It is. And the book also underscores the profound power of the simple pause in those challenging parenting moments.
The pause. We keep coming back to that.
Because it's so crucial. That brief space we create before reacting allows us to bring our prefrontal cortex back online, as we discussed.
Get the thinking brain working again.
Yes, helping us to consciously break those automatic, often unhelpful reactive patterns yelling, snapping, withdrawing.
Right.
And the book reminds us, our own ability to pause and regulate our emotions also plays a crucial role in helping our children co-regulate theirs. Our calm helps them find their calm.
It all connects back. Okay, chapter 22 directly challenges the often unspoken norm of fear-based parenting.
Yeah, this is a big one in our culture sometimes.
It is, and this section really struck a chord with me as I actively try to move away from some of those ingrained patterns I might have picked up growing up.
The book thoughtfully quotes Jane Nelson, who asks, where did we ever get the crazy idea that in order to make children do better, first we have to make them feel worse?
Wow, that really makes you stop and think. Punishments, shame.
Right. It prompts us to critically examine what fear and threat-based parenting actually teaches our children about things like power, respect, and connection. Is it teaching fear or respect?
What's the alternative offered?
It encourages us to consciously set an intention of calm in situations that have historically triggered stress for us, like maybe the chaos of bedtime routines or frantic morning departures.
Okay, set an intention.
And to cultivate a gentle awareness of our own triggers, acknowledging them with kindness rather than immediately reacting from that heightened emotional state, knowing what pushes your buttons.
Right.
And it gently reminds us again that children are constantly co-regulating their emotions with us, and that their capacity for full self-regulation doesn't fully mature until their early 20s.
Early 20s. That's a long time.
It is. So often what they need most from us in those difficult moments is for us to tune into their underlying feelings and needs.
Empathy.
Yes. Rather than just relying on logic or trying to force them to calm down or comply, connect with the feeling first.
Got it. Now, chapter 25 offers a somewhat counterintuitive but ultimately freeing idea. I don't need to entertain my kid.
Huh. Music to many parents' ears, I imagine.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
As a parent who often feels this underlying pressure to keep my child constantly stimulated and engaged, this was a really valuable reminder.
The book challenges this prevailing tendency to feel like we need to constantly fill our children's time with structured activities or entertainment.
Right, the enrichment treadmill.
And it questions the way we often shoo them away during everyday household tasks. Go play, mommy's busy. It even brings up the somewhat radical notion that ordinary life can be inherently stimulating for children, and that allowing for periods of boredom is actually incredibly beneficial for fostering their creativity.
Boredom is beneficial. Tell me more.
Well, it's about recognizing that overscheduling our kids with endless activities and relying too heavily on screens can actually rob them of crucial opportunities for imaginative play, for delving into their own inner worlds, and for the kind of deep, unstructured play that's so vital for their development. Boredom is often the precursor to creativity. They have to figure out what to do next.
So we don't need to solve their boredom for them.
Not always. The book wisely encourages us to involve children in our daily routines and tasks, cooking, cleaning, gardening, even if it makes things a little slower initially.
Okay, embrace the help.
Yeah, as a way to teach them that they are valued members of the family team contributing to the household.
That makes sense. Chapter 26 then reinforces the crucial importance of boundaries.
Right, because moving away from authoritarianism doesn't mean no limits.
Exactly. It's careful to clarify that moving away from a more authoritarian style of parenting absolutely does not mean abandoning limits altogether. Kids need structure.
They thrive on it.
Yeah.
The book clearly emphasizes that healthy boundaries are not only necessary for our children's sense of safety and well-being, but also for respecting the needs and limits of the parents and caregivers, too.
Our needs matter, too.
Absolutely. It reframes the role of parents as wise and loving leaders who establish helpful routines.
Leaders, not dictators.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it stresses the importance of being consistent in upholding those boundaries, while also practicing patience with the inevitable reminders that will be needed. They're still learning.
Consistency and patience.
Yeah.
High themes. Okay, chapter 27 shines a light on the power of playfulness.
Oh, this is a fun one.
It sounds fun. It shares a wonderful quote from Lawrence J. Cohen, who so insightfully said, "Children don't say, 'I had a hard day at school today, can I talk to you about it?' They say, 'Will you play with me?'"
So true.
Yeah.
Play is their language.
It is. And the book provides some really practical and fun examples of how we can weave more playfulness into our daily interactions, even with, like, mundane tasks.
Like what?
Things like using silly voices, playfully acting incompetent at a task so they can help us.
Oh, I can't possibly open this jar trick.
Totally. being contrary in a lighthearted way,
Mm.
maybe using goofy pretend threats like, I'm gonna gobble you up.
Yeah, gets them laughing.
It explains how this element of playfulness can make everyday routines like getting dressed or brushing teeth more inviting and can give children a valuable sense of agency and power within the family dynamic. It diffuses tension.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, chapter 28 addresses the often tricky territory of realistic expectations.
Oh boy. Something I think we all need regular check-ins on as parents. It's easy to forget how young they still are sometimes.
Definitely. The book shares a very relatable anecdote from the author about having unrealistically high expectations for her verbally precocious young daughter's emotional maturity.
Ah, the kid who talks like a lawyer but melts down like a toddler.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that while a child might have the vocabulary to express complex ideas, their ability to manage big emotions and think abstractly is still very much developing.
So don't confuse verbal skills with emotional regulation skills.
Right. The book gently reminds us that children are inherently less mature than adults, and that they often need significant repetition to truly learn new skills and concepts. Think about how many times you have to remind them to put their shoes on.
Oh, countless times.
It underscores the important point that the prefrontal cortex, that center for executive functions, isn't fully developed until our early 20s.
We keep coming back to that. Early 20s.
It's crucial. And it advocates for consciously lowering our expectations sometimes and anticipating that mistakes and regressions are a normal part of the learning process.
Expect mistakes.
But the book even suggests taking some time to learn about the typical stages of child development. Maybe reading something like Chip Wood's Yardsticks as a way to help us temper our expectations and better understand what's reasonable for a child at different ages.
Good suggestion. Knowing what's developmentally appropriate helps a lot. Okay, chapters 29 and 31 offer some really practical guidance on effective communication.
Yes, how to actually talk so kids might listen, and how to listen too. It breaks it down for communicating with younger children and with older kids.
So what's the advice for little kids?
For younger children, the book advises us to speak simply and honestly. Prioritize connecting with them emotionally before trying to correct their behavior.
Connect before correct.
Yes, and avoid just barking orders, which, as the book quotes Joanna Faber and Julie King, can stir up rebellion.
Makes sense. Nobody likes being ordered around.
Right. It suggests being aware of how often we use direct commands. It also offers some specific tools for encouraging cooperation.
Like what?
Things like incorporating playfulness, as we just discussed, offering genuine choices. Do you want the red cup or the blue cup? Giving brief and clear information, using just one key word as a prompt, pajamas, and simply describing what you observe. I see shoes on the floor.
Okay, those are really concrete tools. What about older kids?
When it comes to communicating with older kids, the emphasis shifts towards being authentic in our interactions, practicing active listening, like really hearing what they're saying, not just planning your response, and showing empathy for their perspectives and feelings, even if you don't agree with them.
So, validation.
Huge. The book also highlights the importance of us calming our own inner experience before we try to get our older child to calm down. Remember co-regulation.
Right. Model the calm.
And it even shares a fascinating insight from the Inuit culture about how they respond to upset children, often with very few words and minimal movement or facial expression, just a calm presence.
Interesting. Less is more sometimes. Okay, chapter 33 provides a really helpful reframe. Handling misbehavior as teaching.
Yes, shifting from punishment to guidance.
Instead of just seeing it as something to be punished or suppressed, it challenges that common cultural mindset that children are always intentionally testing boundaries or trying to manipulate us.
Which they're usually not, right? They're usually communicating something.
Exactly. The book reminds us that the very word discipline originally comes from the Latin word discipulus, meaning learner or pupil.
Ah, so discipline is about teaching.
Fundamentally, yes. It's about guiding and educating. It offers a specific example. Responding to a child who hits by calmly stopping the behavior, acknowledging the feeling that might have led to it. You look really angry right now.
Naming the feeling.
And then guiding them towards more acceptable ways of expressing those feelings. Hitting hurts. Let's hit this pillow instead. Or use your words to tell me you're mad.
So setting the limit, but teaching the skill.
Right. The core message here is that children's behavior is a form of communication, often expressing underlying feelings, impulses, or unmet needs.
Okay.
The book then outlines some key steps for handling misbehavior effectively. First, listen mindfully to what's really going on beneath the surface. Second, ask yourself, what does my child need to learn in this moment?
What's the lesson here?
Exactly. And third, approach them as a patient mentor who holds boundaries with kindness.
Patient mentor. I like that image. Okay, chapter 34 introduces the valuable concept of resolving conflicts win-win.
Especially useful, it seems, for navigating the often turbulent adolescent years.
Oh yeah, power struggles central.
The book directly addresses the common fear of conflict and power struggles that can arise during the teenage years and presents the win-win approach as a way to shift from adversarial interactions, I win, you lose, to collaborative problem solving.
So finding solutions that work for everyone.
Exactly. The focus here is on trying to meet everyone's underlying needs, rather than just getting stuck on surface-level demands or positions.
Needs, not wants.
Right. The book explains that children's behaviors often stem from their fundamental needs, things like safety, belonging, autonomy, fun, contribution, and that conflicts arise when these needs seem to clash. Maybe my need for quiet clashes with their need for noisy play.
Okay, so how does the win-win process work?
It outlines a practical step-by-step process. First, identify everyone's underlying needs in this situation. What do I really need? What does my child really need?
Get clear on the needs.
Then, brainstorm potential solutions together without judgment initially. Get all the ideas out there.
Okay.
Next, evaluate those solutions, which ones seem feasible and meet everyone's core needs. Make a decision collaboratively.
And then?
Finally, and this is important, check in later to see how the agreed-upon solution is actually working. Is it meeting everyone's needs? Does it need tweaking?
So it's an ongoing process. I like that. Chapter 36 emphasizes the critical importance of repairing connection after conflict.
Yes, the rupture and repair cycle.
It acknowledges that rupture, those moments of disagreement, frustration, or disconnection,
Sure.
are a normal part of any relationship,
They're going to happen.
but that the key is the repair. And the book puts the onus on the adult to initiate that repair, to actively work towards restoring that connection.
It's our job to mend the fence.
Pretty much. The book stresses the power of taking responsibility for our part in a conflict and offering a genuine apology.
Not a fake, sorry, but apology.
Exactly, and a real apology. Not just as a way to smooth things over, but as a powerful form of modeling for our children, showing them how it's done.
Right.
It also highlights the importance of circling back to repair any unresolved conflicts, maybe later when things are calm. Because those unresolved moments can fester and lead to negative interpretations and a feeling of insecurity in the relationship.
So don't just sweep it under the rug.
No. The book even provides some helpful guidance on how to offer a truly effective apology, like focusing on your actions. I'm sorry I yelled.
Good tip. Okay, chapter 37 uses the lovely concept of dating your child.
Sounds fun. Prioritizing one-on-one time.
It uses the poignant idea of the 940 Saturdays.
Oh, that one hits hard.
Doesn't it? Representing the limited number of Saturdays we typically have with our children before they leave home to really highlight how precious and fleeting this time is.
Makes you want to soak it all in.
Yeah, it does. It draws a parallel between nurturing the parent-child relationship and nurturing a marriage, emphasizing that both require intentional effort and dedicated time. You can't just coast.
Right.
The book strongly suggests scheduling regular dates with each child individually, focusing purely on fun and connection, separate from the everyday routines and demands. Just enjoying each other.
What kind of dates?
Oh, it gives ideas like going for ice cream, playing a board game, going for a walk, just hanging out and talking whatever the child enjoys. Simple stuff.
That sounds really beneficial for strengthening the bond.
Definitely. And making parenting feel a bit easier in the long run, too, because the connection is stronger. Okay, chapters 38 and 39 delve into the impact of the home environment.
The physical space and routines.
Right, and they offer some really practical insights into how our physical surroundings and daily rhythms can either support or undermine our parenting efforts. Well, the book highlights how a cluttered and chaotic home environment, just filled with too much stuff, can actually contribute to feelings of overwhelm and even trigger tantrums in children. And adults, probably.
Oh, I feel that. Visual clutter equals mental clutter sometimes.
Totally. It emphasizes that having less material possessions can often lead to more ease, greater creativity, and a stronger focus on relationships rather than things.
Less stuff, more connection.
It recommends decluttering to a level that a child can reasonably manage to put away themselves, setting them up for success.
Makes sense. And routines.
Yes, the book also stresses the importance of establishing regular daily rhythms and predictability in routines. Think consistent wake-up times, meal times, bedtime rituals.
Uh-huh.
These provide children with a crucial sense of safety and security. They know what to expect, reduces anxiety.
Exactly. It even suggests previewing the day's schedule with younger children. First breakfast, then we get dressed, then we go to the park to help reduce surprises and potential anxieties.
Giving them a roadmap.
Yeah. And finally, it reminds us that fostering independence is a gradual process. It's not instant.
How does it break that down?
It talks about stages. First, they watch us do things, then they do them with us, then they do it while we watch, and finally, they achieve independent mastery. It takes time and patience.
That's a helpful way to think about it. Okay, chapters 41 and 49 address the need for breaks and support for us as parents.
Yes. Put your own oxygen mask on first.
Totally. It directly challenges that often unspoken societal expectation that we should be self-sacrificing martyrs, constantly on call 24/7.
The myth of the superparent.
Right. The book powerfully reminds us that the idea of community support, that it takes a village, is not just a quaint saying, but is actually deeply rooted in our biology and evolutionary history. We're not meant to do this alone.
We're wired for connection and support.
Exactly. It gives parents explicit permission to seek help for their own well-being, emphasizing that this is not selfish,
Say it louder.
but is actually one of the most beneficial things we can do for our children, because it allows us to be more balanced, patient, and present parents.
When our cup is full, we have more to give.
Precisely. The book suggests various ways to build a support network, leaning on a partner, family members, finding paid help if possible, even supportive neighbors or friends, creating your village.
Yeah.
Crucially, it highlights the vital importance of regular breaks for parents, even small ones,
Why are breaks so important?
to recharge our energy, replenish our patience, and just return to our parenting role feeling more centered and present. These breaks also allow us to nurture our own identities outside of being mom or dad, which ultimately reduces the pressure on our children to meet all our needs.
Good point. We need to be whole people, too.
Yeah.
Okay, chapters 42 and 43 then explore the importance of downtime and free play.
Yes, pushing back against the cult of busyness.
The book addresses the pervasive pressure to overschedule our children with a constant stream of activities, soccer, ballet, tutoring, music,
The list goes on.
which can lead to lives that feel congested and stressful for everyone involved, kids and parents.
Burnout is real.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It emphasizes the fundamental necessity of downtime for all of us adults and children alike, just to process our experiences, to simply be, and to cultivate presence, unstructured time.
So it's okay to just do nothing sometimes.
More than okay, it's necessary. It encourages us to feel empowered to say no to some activities and to actively protect those valuable pockets of unscheduled time in the family calendar.
Yeah.
Guard that downtime.
Okay. And free play.
Yes. It also highlights the concerning decline of free play, that child-directed unstructured play that is so essential.
Why is it declining?
Factors like safety concerns keeping kids indoors, the huge allure of screens, and an increased academic focus even in early years. Less time just messing about.
And why is free play so important?
Oh, the benefits are huge, as the book explains. It's crucial for developing imagination, problem-solving skills, emotional regulation, physical health, social skills, and even self-confidence. They figure things out on their own.
Wow. All that from just playing.
Yeah. The book even touches on the concerning link between the decrease in free play and the rising rates of anxiety and depression in children.
That's serious. So how can we support more free play?
It offers practical ways: limiting screen time, intentionally cutting back on some scheduled activities, encouraging outdoor exploration, go play outside, and advocating for more play-based learning environments in schools and preschools.
Good, actionable ideas. All right, chapter 44 looks at cultivating helpful kids.
Getting him to pitch in.
Right. And it shares a really insightful anecdote about how we sometimes unintentionally shoo young children away when they offer to help with tasks because it's faster to do it ourselves.
No, honey, I'll do it, yeah.
Only to later wish they were more willing to contribute when they're older.
Yeah.
We kind of train them not to help sometimes.
Ooh, good point. It then shares some wisdom from Michaeline Ducleff's research on Mayan parenting practices, where involving children in everyday work from a very young age is just a natural, expected part of life. They learn by being included.
So how do we foster that helpfulness?
The book provides some really practical tips for different developmental stages, like simply involving babies and toddlers in small ways, letting them hold the dustpan even if they spill it. encouraging preschoolers' natural desire to help, even if it's inefficient, asking older children to observe first, then take on small jobs.
Okay.
It emphasizes the importance of slowing down our own pace to allow for their participation, expecting mistakes as part of the learning process.
Let go of perfection.
Yes, making specific requests for help, can you please set the table, and really focusing on the experience of working together as a team rather than just the efficiency or the end result.
Focus on contribution, not perfection. Got it. Chapter 45 offers the seemingly paradoxical but ultimately wise advice to love more, care less.
Love more, care less. Explain that one.
It clarifies that excessive caregiving, or maybe overcaring, can sometimes inadvertently translate into overcontrol and anxiety for both the parent and the child. Trying too hard.
Like hovering, micromanaging.
Exactly. The book emphasizes the importance of giving our children the space they need to discover who they are, to make their own mistakes, within safe boundaries, of course,
Right.
and to develop a sense of autonomy and self-reliance, letting them figure some things out.
Where does the caring less come in?
It connects the desire for rigid control to our own underlying fears and ego. Caring less here means relaxing that tight grip of control. Okay, what are some examples?
The book gives examples like letting a somewhat messy room be their messy room, not the whole house maybe.
Choose your battles.
Right. Supporting homework without micromanaging every single step. Allowing adequate time for them to complete their chores independently without constant nagging. Perhaps limiting the number of overly structured, adult-driven, organized activities.
Giving them breathing room.
Exactly. The core message is that our primary focus should be on nurturing a close and loving relationship and modeling the behaviors we hope to see, rather than trying to control every little outcome. Trust the relationship.
Love more, control less, maybe. Okay,
Yeah.
Now, the author's note and various sections throughout the book address taming the inner critic.
Back to that critical voice. It's a recurring theme.
It is. That often harsh and judgmental voice that many of us hear inside our own heads. And the book points out that inner voice inevitably comes out and influences our children too.
Oof, yeah. How we talk to ourselves is how we often end up talking to them.
So true. The book cautions against the ineffective strategy of simply trying to tell ourselves the opposite of our critical thoughts, like just saying, I'm a great parent. When you feel awful, it doesn't always land.
Right. Feels fake sometimes.
Instead, it reiterates the power of actively interrupting those negative thought patterns.
Catching them.
And consciously practicing self-compassion toward ourselves, that kindness piece again.
So noticing the critic and choosing kindness instead.
Yes. It suggests intentionally cultivating helpful and positive affirmations that feel authentic as a way to counteract that negativity. And it emphasizes that engaging in this practice can actually help us break harmful patterns that might have been passed down through generations.
Changing the legacy, that's powerful.
Similarly, the book frequently emphasizes embracing the pace of childhood.
Slowing down.
Yes, highlighting that childhood is this unique and incredibly valuable period of learning and development that really shouldn't be rushed or crammed with too many adult-driven agendas. Let them be little.
It's not a race to adulthood.
Exactly. It explains that the kind of spontaneous, imaginative play that's so vital for children's growth really thrives when they have stretches of that unscheduled time we talked about.
Room to breathe and imagine.
It also acknowledges the societal pressures and our own internal anxieties that can lead us to overschedule our children's lives, wanting them to have every advantage.
The pressure is real.
It is. The book offers 3 simple but effective ideas for actively slowing ourselves down, engaging in mindfulness meditation regularly,
Calming the inner pace.
getting regular, vigorous exercise to release pent-up energy and stress,
Moving the body.
and creating small rituals to help us transition from our often frantic work mode or task mode into a more relaxed state of being when we're with our kids, like taking a few deep breaths before walking in the door.
Marking the transition. Good idea.
Ultimately, it reminds us that the true joy and connection with our children are most often found in the simple, unhurried moments of the present, not in the rushing.
Being here now. Okay, chapter 48 delves into the importance of taking in the good.
Counteracting that negativity bias again.
Exactly. Especially in the context of our constantly connected society, which often bombards us with negative news and our inherent tendency to focus on problems.
It can feel overwhelming.
It can. The book explains how the information we constantly consume, whether it's news, social media, or even our own thoughts, can actually shape the structure and function of our brains. What we feed our minds matters.
Garbage in, garbage out, basically.
Kind of. But the good news is, It highlights the wonderful neuroplasticity of our brains again.
We can change it.
We can, emphasizing our ability to actively cultivate positive experiences and intentionally focus on them, savoring the good moments.
How does that help?
Well, it points out the far-reaching benefits of consciously leaning into positive moments, letting them sink in. This can include things like a stronger immune system, improved mood, and greater overall resilience to stress. It builds inner resources.
So actively look for and soak up the good stuff.
That's the idea. Don't just let it wash over you like Teflon. Let it stick like Velcro for a change.
A nice flip of the analogy. Okay, and finally, the book beautifully concludes with final thoughts, weaving in the powerful message of permission to be human throughout Chapter 50 and other sections.
Bringing it all together.
It powerfully reiterates the core message we've been exploring throughout this deep dive, that parenting is an incredibly challenging journey.
Understatement.
And it is absolutely okay. In fact, it's essential that we don't strive for some unattainable ideal of perfection. Let go of perfect. The book emphasizes the vital importance of extending self-compassion to ourselves, of actively seeking support when we need it, remember the village,
Ask for help.
and of prioritizing our own happiness and well-being. It connects our own happiness directly to our child's well-being with this really empowering message.
What is it?
You have permission to be human, you have permission to get support, and you have permission to be happy.
Wow. Just reading that feels like a weightlifting. Permission to be happy.
Doesn't it? So as we bring this deep dive into raising good humans every day to a close, the key message that really shines through for me is this. By consciously shifting our focus away from the desire for control and the pursuit of an impossible perfection, and instead embracing mindfulness, cultivating self-compassion, and prioritizing a deep and authentic connection with our children.
Connection over correction, maybe.
Yeah, we create a parenting journey that is not only more positive and fulfilling, but also far more sustainable for both us and our kids. It feels more possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thinking about all these ideas, what stands out most to you, our listener, as you reflect on this? Which of these insights resonates most deeply with your own current experiences in parenting or caregiving right now?
And here's a final thought for you to consider this week. Think about just one small, actionable step you could take inspired by our conversation today. Just one thing.
Small steps.
To bring a little more calm or connection or maybe self-compassion into your family life. How might even a subtle shift in your perspective, maybe on control or on mistakes, or even on the importance of your own self-care, how might that ripple through your interactions with your child this week?
It's amazing how small shifts can make a big difference over time. And if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and you'd like to explore these tools and perspectives in greater detail,
Which we hope it has.
We wholeheartedly encourage you to pick up a copy of Raising Good Humans Every Day by Hunter Clarke-Fields. It's a truly valuable resource, full of practical wisdom for navigating the beautiful and challenging path of raising the next generation.